Good morning, church family. In our deep dive daily Devo videos, we have been exploring books of the Bible and discussing them in small chunks. And today we are continuing to explore the book of Acts and discuss the book of Acts. And we're going to be picking up in Paul's ministry in Ephesus. In our passage today, we'll be getting towards the end of his time in Ephesus. And specifically, we'll be seeing some resistance and some tension and some conflict that Paul actually encountered in Ephesus before he left there to go to Macedonia. And so read with me in Acts 19 verses 23 through 28. About that time there occurred no small disturbance concerning the way. For a man named Demetrius, a silversmith who made silver shrines of Artemis, was bringing no little business to the craftsmen. These he gathered together with the workmen of similar trades and said, Men, you know that our prosperity depends upon this business. You see and hear that not only in Ephesus, but almost all of Asia, this Paul has persuaded and turned away a considerable number of people, saying that gods made with hands are no gods at all. Not only is there danger that this trade of ours fall into disrepute, but also that the temple of this great goddess Artemis be regarded as worthless, and that she whom all of Asia and the world worship will even be dethroned from her magnificence. When they heard this and were filled with rage, they began crying out, saying, Great is Artemis of the Ephesians. So imagine being a bystander in Ephesus, and you're just minding your business, and then you see this horde, this massive group of people filled with rage, proclaiming the name of Artemis and saying, Long live Artemis, great be Artemis, she is the great goddess of the Ephesians. You would think, man, these people must really care about Artemis. And if you saw Demetrius leading the way, you'd be like, man, that guy must be really passionate and committed to this goddess Artemis. These people must really care about the goddess of Artemis and really believe in Artemis. But if we dig deeper, if we see the context, if you knew more of the clues, you'd see Artemis was not the real thing that drove this action. Let's look at Demetrius. Let's look at this man that started this riot, the man that started this group proclaiming in anger the name of Artemis. Let's look what's really at the core of his heart. You see, Demetrius was a man who was a silversmith who crafted metal, and he profited greatly off of the idolatry of the people of Ephesus. Making idols to Artemis, making these idols that these people praised was a huge business for him. And so when the gospel was spreading through Ephesus, and when Paul was teaching about God's word, and people were beginning to believe in God and beginning to lay aside their idols, it was a threat to his business. He could truly care less whether or not Artemis was being praised. He was just afraid of the way it would affect his wealth and his personal well-being and his self-interest. And we see here that he decides, I'm going to gather the other people that profit off of this thing too. I'm going to gather the other men that make money off of this whole idol business and get them to join me. And I'm going to appeal to their sense of self too. They're like, guys, I'm not the only one that's going to get hurt. You're going to lose money too. You're going to lose money. And he appeals to their selfishness and their self-interest. But he does it with such deft. He's all about himself. He's all about his own money. But he disguises it as an allegiance to Artemis. And he gets the horde too as well. He gets them to buy, and he's like, my money's going to be threatened, but not just my money. Can you imagine the outrage this is to the goddess Artemis? What a shame it is to her magnificence. How can we let them be so disrespectful to our goddess whom we believe? He switches gears. He's all about his money. He's all about himself, but he disguises it as, man, I'm so angry that they do this to our goddess. How could they do this to the great and powerful Artemis? And at the end, we see that he gets a group of people following him in outrage, proclaiming the name of this goddess, acting like that's truly what frustrated him and frustrated them. In the end, Demetrius, his idol was not Artemis. His idol was himself. The God on the throne of the life of Demetrius was self. And I think in a similar fashion, we can, as believers, at times be claiming that God is what we follow, but truly self and worldly interest is what's on the throne. we have enough of this faith thing tagged on so that we get the benefits. We can be tempted to be like, you know what, I'm going to proclaim God enough so that I get the grace thing, and the love thing sounds good, and I like forgiveness. But that surrender stuff, that truly seeking Him, that praising Him, that making Him the driving force of my entire life, that part I want nothing to do with. That is the temptation of lukewarm believers, is to proclaim God, but truly what's on the throne is self. So much like Demetrius claims this allegiance to Artemis and says, that's what I'm caring about, what he really cared about was his own wealth. And so that's what we need to constantly reflect on is, am I proclaiming God but really caring about self and really living in self? Or is God truly the king on my throne? And is he truly what I'm making the God of my life? Because he's the only thing that deserves to be. Thank you, church family.